I want to do a really bare bones tank. So I've got a reference here, and there's another video in the lessons that's called Tank Advanced. And if you want to see this tank more fully realized, that's where to go to. But what I want to show you right now is just kind of the essential idea behind this particular object and how it is that we would go about drawing it. Okay. So the first thing that you have to do to start to draw this tank is you have to get a shape. And it is a shape that will, I want to do this. You see this shape right here? Go in here. So that's what I'm drawing, okay? I've changed the perspective on it just to have some fun, but basically that's what I'm drawing. Okay, now we need a shape for this top piece. And if we do this, there's a thing going on where the top piece feels to me like it doesn't feel like it's exactly centered, but for the sake of our simple tank, let's make it exactly centered. So what I did was I drew a line from corner to corner, and that gives us the center. Now I can go like this. See how this box then gets mounted on the center. And that represents the box that's on top of it. Now what we need to do is we could do a really slight augmentation of some of these shapes to get it to look a little bit more tank-like. For instance, when we do a subtraction, remember when we, early on in our lessons, so we could do a subtraction from there. And I'll just clean up the pieces. It's been bothering me for a bit. Kind of cleaning up this drawing in general. And let's do one more subtraction to this. This way. And it's kind of tricky in this perspective. I think I'll go to there. See, I'm drawing the bottom of the box, so that I've got a landing spot for that angle. Okay. And I think that what I want to do is I want to pull this box back a little bit. That's nice. And then I think the next thing that I want to do is I want to drop it down a little bit. I want to make it a little bit shorter. See how I'm free to kind of flex these boxes around? Now I'll go in and do some cleanup. And I kind of like it. Okay, so here's a couple more things that I want to do. I'd like to take the top shape, and if I find the center of the top, like this, and in perspective, that's the apex, and I'd like to round that like this. So I'm only going to round half of it, round the back half of it. And at this moment, I'm kind of taking some liberties with this tank shape, having some fun with it. So I just rounded the back half a little bit. Which I think adds a little realism to it. And then I'm going to separate it from the body of the vehicle like this. And then this will cut inwards, and that will cut inwards. Okay? I'm kind of having a perspective error someplace over here. I don't quite understand it, where my error is right in this moment, but I can feel it, and sooner or later I'll understand it. Okay, so that's kind of like the body of a tank. And then the last thing that we have to do is we have to get the wheels, the treads, and the wheels and the treads and the gun. And here's how I want to go about the treads. What I'd like to do with the treads is I'd like to mount them on the sides. And one thing that it looks like to me is they kind of cut inward. I'd like to have them kind of go inward like this. I feel like I've drawn these before and tried to send them outward, but that never quite works out how I want it to. So these ones go in, come across, and like I'm just going to draw straight down. Okay? So here, I'm just drawing this shape like this, and then I want to go straight down. Okay, and use this and draw back. So essentially, I just drew a cube with a beveled face on it, which actually then cuts around the shape that we've been working with. And here. Okay, now back in for a cleanup. This will go this way, and down. Okay, and I'm going to clean. Now all of this can disappear because that's going to go behind the tread. I think that can disappear. This can all disappear. And it's a good habit to try to get rid of the stuff that you're not using. Okay, so now we've got this thing which is starting to look very tank-like. And what we need to do now is draw the wheels. And what I want to do is, I can see that that tank has 6 wheels, but what I want to do is I want to draw 4 wheels, just because it's easier. So what I'd be looking for first, the first thing that I want to do is draw a line down from here. There's going to be a little wheel that lives right up in there, and then I'm going to split this space in 2. And then again, okay. And here's how I could, if I wanted to split it in 6, I could do this. And I could go like this. No, never mind. I don't want to do that. I don't want to mess around with that. So splitting it in 4 is going to be plenty hard enough. Okay. So that gives us that space in perspective. And that gives us, so that gives us 4 even splits. And I want to make this one, this front wheel, half the size here. Okay? All right. So now what we need is, we need this line. Okay. And I'm going to clean up now. See how I can project this line to the other side? Just draw it straight through. And I'm going to also take this line here and draw it through to the other side, because that line and then this one. So what's going to happen here is this is going to end up doing that, and that will do that. Now, in some sense, I'm tempted to have that be kind of the end of this tank. But we'll have to get the wheels, we'll have to draw those wheels, okay? But I'm tempted, because this is our basic tank drawing lesson, to stop it here. Sometimes if we go too far in these basic lessons, the point of them can be lost. So that scoots out just a touch from the body of the tank. And to get a cap on the top of this, if we take, and you see this The minor axis is the direction that the axle, that the wheel, if you had a wheel and you set it here, what would the direction of the axle be? And so that's our minor axis, and mounted on a center line. And so that becomes our the way that we can draw a cap on this. Cap is pretty cool to add to a tank. Okay. Now, the minor axis, again, goes the direction of the wheel, the direction of the axle. Okay, so the axle would go this way. Here's the direction of the axle, right? If there's an axle in here, that would be what direction it would be. So I need the center of this space, and I've got that line going center one way. So if I go like that, and I take this direction, and I put it through there, like that. And now what I need to do with that, all of this can clean up. Now what I'm looking for is an ellipse that's symmetrical around that. And it's an ellipse that fits in this space that is, I can arrange it into a symmetry around that minor axis. Okay, and it can take some kind of messing around to try to get it. So again, from here to there gives me the center point. I'm looking for the center point. And I take the direction of my minor axis and I push it through. And I can compare it to here, and I can see that that's just a little bit wrong. So go for a small correction and clean up. Now I've got the line again around which I want to try to build a symmetrical ellipse. And I've got this space that that symmetrical ellipse would want to live in. Okay. Again, corner to corner, center, boom, minor axis, there, here, that line, reaching the top, reaching the bottom, find the center, bam, minor axis, building a symmetrical. Okay, clean up. And here is another circle, which I'll need to find the center of this. There it is. And there it is. Here's the minor axis. And I need a little ellipse symmetrical around it. And I like the way that that line gave me that, which curls under. And then from here, that way. Nice. Can clean out, come back. Nice. Okay, and then kind of interested in the front shape out here is a little complicated, and it might be fun to try to get that front shape. We could just put the barrel of the gun on here and call it a day. Let's say that the wherever direction you want to put that in becomes a minor axis. And there's a gun. You could do that. and skip forward to shading. But I think that I want to try to get that kind of fun pinch shape that it's got. So let's see what it takes. What it would take is you're going to end up having to try to understand the shape some. And we're in a pretty good place to do that based on so the first thing that I want to do is I want to get a center. Here's a center. And one thing that we could do is from a center there, we could go like this. I could do some shape subtraction here, okay? So if I take a space on this side, and I can just be arbitrary about it, but if I take, say, that much space on this side, I'm going to clean up now. And I can duplicate this space onto the other side by going like this. See that line that passes through and where it hits? Okay, that space has been duplicated now. And from there, I could choose a line back here, cut back there, and project that over. And okay, now I'd go do a cleanup. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to connect from here down. Say I go like that. And then I'm going to connect from here over. And all of this comes out. And comes down and over, and from here down to there. And then from here back. Okay, so now we've made that shape a little bit more complicated, a little bit more interesting. You see how we just like modified it? How we just modified it? And then here, let's do from there the gun. Here it is. That will be the minor axis for the gun. Cylinder around it. Wide part for the barrel into a thin part. And then ending symmetrical along the minor axis. I'm going to clean up a little bit. Okay, so now what we'd like to do is we'd like to shade this, and the shading that I want to recommend is based on how we would shade a cube. And what a cube has going on is it has a light, middle, and dark. So now this tank is itself not a really light object. It's a really dark, it's kind of a middle value object. So the light is not going to go all the way to light. Like you can notice that the paint, the white paint, is, so we could go light, middle. I'm starting to look for where I might want to have a dark. The value that I want to use is a dark. That's a nice dark. So that'll be light, middle, dark. And that'll be what we'll use to shade. And so we'll just take a light direction, and perhaps we'll just copy the light direction from there. And I feel like the light direction is coming from this way, meaning all of the shapes that face away from the light would be dark. So this shape, the underside of this, the underside of this. Okay. And now the shapes that face towards the light would be light. So we can put the light in. There's a shape that faces towards the light, towards the light. This is kind of halfway, right? And the medium and that starts to feel like a fairly solidly constructed tank. We could get into more details on the wheels. They each have a centerpiece around the edges. But actually, as a basic tank, I think what I'd like to do is I think I'd like to leave it right here. This is as far as we need to go with the tank in this part of our drawing lessons. I think that this is a long way for a really basic student. And so if you can get a tank to here, that's just great. Okay, thanks.